more effective educational programs, and that our economic empowerment activities will be centered around improving the nutritional life of children in Nigeria. So how do we make sure that, you know, the complementary feeding the babies are supposed to get after they're 6 months old is actually nutritious and good? How do we make sure women are exclusively breastfeeding their children from when they're born until they're 6 months old? Because everything that the baby needs is inside their mother's breast milk. So how do we make sure that people know this,
that
and
even
that they're
the mothers
practicing
get to feed well, so that
so that the milk is exactly, so how, that whole activity. But the why is because the food isn't being produced by the hungry people.
Yeah, if you look at almost 40% of Nigerian children stunted, it's disheartening. Are we going to change the narrative surrounding the kind of awareness that you need to give mothers, you need to give the people in the society as to the important need for nutrition? Yes, you mentioned we have granite, we have beans. It shouldn't be expensive, but sometimes people really can't lay their hands on this. But sometimes it's also about knowledge.
Absolutely. A lot of times it's about knowledge. And I keep saying that, I mean, you must have heard the statistics of maternal mortality, infant mortality, all the health statistics being bad in Nigeria. The key actually is the level of education of the woman. So, and I think issues around nutrition are also a product of that. I mean, I remember when I was younger, it was so good to kind of feed your baby on the yellow custard. It looks smooth and yellow and beautiful. It's corn, it's maize. That's the one thing babies don't need. That's the one thing babies don't need. Actually, to take our ordinary pap and put palm oil and make it red is much better, because you're giving the child vitamin A. So education, and more than ever before, I think you guys probably have more responsibility than we do, because you guys are media, you talk to people, people listen to you, in the radio, everywhere people listen to you. We need to find a way of communicating with mothers in such a way that they understand what they need to do, with fathers, so that they prioritize feeding kids. And most importantly, also realizing that not doing that is actually not only being unfair to the child, but unfair to you. Because if you have a child who is stunted, whose brain has stopped growing, in your old age, you will not have a productive child that will support you. So it comes back really to you. And you pay the price when you become helpless and old, because the child you have produced will not be able to give birth. The second group, I think, that have a huge responsibility in this is religious leaders. The end of the story that Zuwaira didn't share with you is that when she asked that woman, what's happening with your child? She said, you know, that's how God wants it to be. God does not want it to be that way.
Really?
So, haka Allah yaso. So we have an understanding of fate, F-A-T-E, that you almost give up life. And I always say, why don't you just go lie on the high street and say it's not yet time for you to die? But this is all a product of knowledge. So the religious leaders, the churches, the mosques, the women of the wives of the imams, the wives of the pastors, all these women groups, they need to make sure that the right thing is done. And sometimes it's not so much about money. It's but knowing what to do. Your spinach, instead of cooking spinach to make soup, cook the soup, wash the spinach. When you put down the soup off the fire, cut your spinach little, put it in, stir it, cover it. In 2 minutes it will be cooked and steamed.
And not boiled.
With all the vegetables, with all the vitamins still.
Yes, because sometimes, okay, I'm going to take vegetables, but you end up cooking all of the nutrients and then eat the shaft.
Absolutely. Yes. So these are basic things that I think it's a woman's language that we can transmit to our relatives and to everybody around us.
And of course the health workers.
Yes. So the you know, one of the challenges that we have is that We have community health workers, but they are not necessarily deployed where they're needed the most, right? This is, again, you think about incentives. People don't want to go to places that are really difficult to live in. We don't have the right incentives for them. They're not paid properly. They don't get their allocations when they're supposed to, and so they don't necessarily do what they're supposed to do.
To go to a village where there's no water.
Thank you. And then you're not even paid on time, and then you just find it difficult to have incentivize them to go. So we have, part of our program is to work on the community health.
Does leadership come into this now?
Of course. Yeah. I mean, say 90% of what's wrong is because we don't necessarily have the right leadership in place on any topic. The leadership means that the resources that are allocated get to where they're supposed to get to and are deployed appropriately, and there's checks and balances and consequences for people not doing the right thing. That's what leadership is. Now, when you don't have that, then we have a system that is dysfunctional, like what we have.
The way it is.
There you go.
Now, let's quickly go back to the issue of polio, of course, which we are majorly talking about. The last case was in Sumaila in Kano State, and in the Northeast, we still have the challenge with the Boko Haram crisis. How do you want to ensure that that area, particularly children, are continuously reached and, immunization delivered to them? Especially with the issue of, vaccinators that, got caught up somewhere and were killed.
So what we're doing in the Northeast is to see, to take community by community, cases by case, kind of being opportunistic, if I put it this way. When there's peace, or where places that have some sense of security, healthcare workers just move in. And we now have local people that vaccinate kids. And people, I mean, it's incredible the amount of sacrifice these health workers do. The amount of sacrifice that local women do. The women who have volunteered to be vaccinators. And so therefore they go when there's peace and they access the children. But that's something that's really hugely challenging for us. We're still looking for ways on how to reach those kids. But what is crucial, at least, is we've been able to wall the kids in the Northeast. So whenever kids are going outside the Northeast to any zone, because they're going to go by road, all the roads are blocked with vaccinators. So if children are moving to Niger, all the borders of Niger have vaccinators. If children are going to Chad or Cameroon, the borders. If children are moving from Adamawa, say to Benue, the borders are locked with vaccinators. Similarly, if children are going from Yobe to Bauchi, so all the children moving out from the Northeast are all vaccinated on the borders. No child leaves Northeast without vaccination. No child enters the Northeast without vaccination.
Because that area is very key.
It is.
Especially in these 2 years that we're looking at. Otherwise, we don't want any reversal of...
at all.
Yeah, and I think that's also why we're very cautious about celebrating the 1 year. It just means that we've taken the first baby step. Not yet done.
1 out of 3.
Absolutely.
We still have a long way to go.
We have a long way to go.
Yeah. Okay, I think we have to leave it here for now, and hopefully when Nigeria is actually certified polio-free, then we have maybe we have champagne to celebrate.
And I hope that the foundations will come again so that we can all celebrate together.
Absolutely.
Oh, we certainly will celebrate together, and before then we'll keep working hard to get there.
Yes, it's important.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Well, all we can do is wish you good luck, and please stay out of harm's way in the course of this work that you're all doing, because Nigeria needs you to stay alive and continue the good work. Dr. Meru Mandara, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and Zuera Yusufu, MD CEO, Dangote Foundation.
Thank you for
very
coming.
much for coming to update us on the work that you're doing, especially on polio and nutrition.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sunrise will return in just a moment with another interesting conversation. I hope you'll be there to join us.